been looking out in the Pacific midnight last night, and I noticed this closed low. Here's the States. Been out in the mid-Pacific, and what I see, you see these holes spinning up around the core of the low, and that gives us our anchor points and how we want to essentially steer the storm. It'll eventually form into a cube. That'll happen. But in the satellite imagery, it's these holes that I always find so fascinating. And you can do that when you move one layer of the atmosphere at a 90-degree angle to another. You'll set up the spin. You'll set up the vortex. It'll eventually spin up into that low. And you would begin over here. And then it'll propagate. But it starts here, and then it really begins to manifest on this corner. Not much in the way of the trails in the west. Some off the coast of California, but not to the number we've seen lately. But this was a good example of how they spin up these little vortices to eventually turn a storm. Morning of Friday, September 21, 2010. Still have our hazy skies, and about 20 minutes ago I saw this trail laid out across the horizon, and it stuck, and it stuck, and it stuck. And you can see that there's some others off in the distance, but this one was just kind of a standout. There's one disturbance right in there that showed up almost immediately, and I wish I'd gotten out of here about 10 minutes ago to shoot it. And the trail deformed similarly, eventually, but not right away, along this part. But it was just like the trail was uniform, and then there's this one little segment, maybe 300 yards across. Maybe it could have been a mile. It's kind of hard to tell. That this rippling showed up, and so they were measuring something in there. And now I've noticed we've got another plane that's come on in here from the east, and it's going to have a look at some part of this trail. Curious to see exactly where it crosses. All right, so what I'm seeing is where this trail, and I do not know whether the camera's going to pull this off. I think a polarizing lens, polarizing filter might be good to catch this. But there's some stripes here where the trail is essentially maybe the leading edge, or measuring where there's some tearing that's happening, or some rippling that's been introduced into the sky. And it's funny how once the other plane we kind of looked at coming this way, got to the trail, it essentially faded off to nothing. There was one into the south, and the same thing has happened with that as well. I'm hearing one overhead, maybe you can too. He's on glide scope. He's gliding, he's on descent. And his trail isn't sticking nearly as, well, it is overhead a little bit. It is overhead. But there's some target that this other trail's laid out that he's most interested in. I'll stay out here for a bit and see what it is. Well, what I see is debris from an earlier trail, and then there's this point where the cloud separates. And it kind of leaves an opening, and that's just what he's passed through. You know, it seems, at least in my eyes, to be a rather minor target. It's just kind of on the way to something else. It's off in the haze, in the smoky haze from those fires in the northwest that we're dealing with, and has certainly impacted our visibility. But it doesn't appear to be nearly as busy a day as yesterday, at least at this point. I've talked about these hairy clouds where the tops get hairy, and I've often seen how planes have come across that, and once that happens, the clouds go hairy. This guy's just come arcing on over. So he had to get across the top of this cloud, which is off towards the northeast. And the trail is going to do a little fanning out at the back where he makes his turn, and then it fades, and then it comes back into visibility. Good old Southwest. I wonder if they had to sell their soul to stay in business. Because out here there's a lot of Southwest planes doing this stuff. A lot of Southwest planes. He left definitely a sticky trail. Just about to cross in front of the sun. Because the trails are the clouds. The jet stream is moving generally to the southeast, as we've got a ridge of high pressure to our northwest. So there's this other formation, which is again the result of a previous trail, and it doesn't show the structure like come back over here, like these clouds. This guy's a very different beast. So he's just running diagonally across that. I can't tell if it's at or above the clouds. Suppose we could if we can sense the shadow here. It's kind of tough to see in the viewfinder. We'll see it on the big screen, and you'll see it at home. But it does look like he's above that layer of clouds, that deck of chemtrail debris. About 20 minutes later, 3 fresh trails. One cruised over the top of this fall streak. One right at the end of this cloud. And then one is pretty much gone, not quite straight through, but my angle of where I am, well, what it looks like is that we've got a cube in here. And it's gone through that cube shape. And the trail is in alignment with the base of this cloud right in there. This and then that. And so the trail has gone right through the heart of that. And it's just one of these little planes. I've seen a lot of those today. They're quieter. I don't hear them from inside like I do the big guys. But they're still chemtrailing. And then when they're not in quote-unquote a hot zone, then they're leaving the short trails. Then when they end up showing up in their zone of quote-unquote operation, theater of operation, then the trails last. And so they can cruise from point to point and not really have anybody's attention, but when they need to, shall we say, throw the switch, then there it is. And here's his trails with the little powder extrusions. And then down below an older trail. And it's beginning to show, actually it was an older trail, which is kind of the wide one, then a new one right here in the center. And then you can see a change of behavior on this north side versus this south side on the older trail, where the powders are kind of coming up and then this way, and then on this lower part they're coming straight down. And so that's it's marking some front, some boundary, some zone where there's a change energetically in the atmosphere. And so you can kind of see how the cloud comes here and then comes up right where the trail went through. So he's hit that spot with some precision, and then the point where the energy is coming out is right up here. So quite a little operation over here. Let's have another kind of fall streakish kind of cloud. But on each side, we have 2 holes. A hole here, and a hole here. And in between that, we have the cloud shape, the T shape, taking form. Crazy, huh? Crazy, crazy, crazy. The world we live in. I no sooner turn off the camera than I hear this guy coming up from overhead. Push on in and see if we can get a paint scheme on him. See whose colors he's flying. Definitely a 737. If I'm not mistaken, I'm seeing an orange belly, so that's Southwest, and that's one of the older paint schemes. And so, we're interested in where he's flying his blue trail. What cloud is he going to go punch through? What is he gonna cross this other business jet that we just saw. We just saw this trail go. So I'm curious in what his target is. Where is he going? Is this what it's all about? These two trails, you know, outline the extent, the north and south extent of this cloud formation. And now he looks like he's going to go right through the heart of it, right through here. And see, the trail's not lasting all that much, but I bet it will. I bet it'll persist right in through here. So this is his target. Come on in, see if he goes up above or below this trail. Maybe we can tell by the shadow. I didn't get any clue, at least looking through this viewfinder. And then we'll back out so we can assess his geometry. But yeah, he's going right through the middle of it. Right through the middle of it. So now I hope after seeing this day after day, you guys begin to understand why they're flying the chemtrails. You know, it's all about the shapes of the clouds. It's all about especially these cirrus-like, you know, sliths or elementals, because this is a spiritual war we're fighting here. Or I don't know if we're fighting it, but we're certainly been drawn into it. Evidence of just being birthed on this planet. So we got this other series of trails. Boom, 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 boom. So 5 of them. So he went right through that shape. Alright, back to work. He's just gotten real busy. Thought I was going to go inside, but notice how his trail is lit. Lit once he passed through that center point. Now it's bright, and it'll probably stay bright for a distance. This is a fresh guy, and he's headed north. In fact, level is here, so his flight path is on an incline. He's climbing, so I would certainly hear him from the inside. I'm going to swing back around to the north. Got another one just coming in. Let's see if we can't see his paint. See which airline has been co-opted to fly these colors. You make it out? You make it out? Now we're beginning to hear him. But he's a little bit higher than a lot of the planes we've seen the last couple of days. And then right behind him, let's zoom out so we can get context here. Come through this guy. There's another one. So the planes have kind of gone out, done their work in the distance, and now they turn around and come back in. That could very well be Delta. There's usually a little more blue on the tail than that. But he's definitely chemtrailing, and let's see what his target was. It had to be this cloud. Had to be that cloud. He's off to tip the end of this guy that we looked at earlier. Back to the west, or southwest. This one is still persisting right at that center point as he heads off into the distance. Alright, I gotta shut up. This is gonna be way too long today. Here's a nice bright one. Good old southwest, as usual. But it's interesting. It's a previous trail in one of these little fall streak occurrences right underneath it. And then what I'm curious, wanted to show you, is pointed in the sun. We can see how the powders have come off this trail. You can see how they're formed into these channels, these billowing channels. I'm going to darken up iris down to 7/10 of an f-stop. Knock out the sun. There we go. And we can see what's going on up here. But these trails so often are defining some boundary in the atmosphere, and that the powders up there will illuminate some kind of a wave action. Some kind of a wave action that makes the invisible visible. Yeah, he's gone over the horizon now. Just a little segment of his trail persists. And then you can see how the ice crystals have come off very strongly. Right in through here. Off of this earlier trail. I didn't see it go, so I don't know who did it or what kind of plane. It's just been crossing in front of the sun right now. All we've really had this afternoon is some of these higher, shorter duration, but still chemtrail flights. Because there's been other, fall streak-like clouds, those kind of things that they've been interested in. But we're getting to the point where we're at the end of the day, and on the horizon, there's just not a lot happening weather-wise. We still have some other clouds up there. An aspect of it is debris from trailing that's upstream, from the smoke in Idaho, Washington, and Oregon, that might finally get some rain to put those fires out. Sunday, Monday, that looks good. But otherwise, it's been kind of, well, I won't say it's been quiet, it's been busy. But we haven't seen a lot of marking trails here in the last hour. And this plane's still trucking off to the east. Looks like he's in level flight. And there he goes. Alright, if nothing else happens, then this is it for the day. For Friday, 21 September 2012. Probably hit the computer once again, have a look and see what's going on there, and then that'll be it for the day. Alright, everybody. Stay tuned. Alright, I'm seeing this guy. I was seeing his tail sputtering earlier. Sputtering tails are, well, you know what they are. Just a sign that it's not contrail. It's just not like, let's change tanks. So we have the pink trail. I'm hearing another plane behind me. Oh, it looks like it's decided to stick now. Yeah, back up here he was just kind of sputtering on and off, and now it's definitely getting a little more traction. I bet as he heads to the west, as has often been the case today, that it'll really persist. In fact, in the vapor imagery, it looks like it's cloudy over us. There's a steady stream of vapor. But our humidities are still exceedingly low. We'll look at that as well on satellite. Okay. Alright, here's one there. Here's his buddy. So they're coming in and doing the square, doing the 90-degree trip. Where their trails end up being at 90 degrees. That's very regular. Very regular. And as we look into the sun, I'll probably hire us down just a touch. You can see that there's a lot of crap in the air. Some of it's smoke, some of it's chemtrail, and some of it's water vapor captured by either. So there we go. So we're seeing a little plane come up from the east, and I'm like, I don't want to turn on the camera for another one. And he just left a fairly significant trail as he moved on to the western horizon. I mean, it was just a little 2-inch in, like a Gulf Stream. Could have been a Dassault Falcon, but this is a spot they'd be interested in. Come down along. See this spot right here. The powders are dripping out. There's actually a fold and a roll. How the powders come out on this side here, and then on this side, on this part of the trail. They come out to the south, neutral, come off to the north, neutral, and you can see the trail auger. You can see it literally roll over. And this is what the trails are providing the weather makers, who have the ability to see such detail from space. And so they can sense what is happening with the trails and what that means for them weather-wise. Look at that. So this is all data. This is why these trails are flown. To make these invisible waves visible. Elegantly simple. Elegantly simple. Came upstairs to have a little look-see. So what we'd see in time is another plane come across. And if I had to pick a spot for this plane, another plane to cross or split this trail off, it would be right here. It would be at this place where it's steady. On one side we have the tail dispersing to the north or to the right, and to the south we have or to the west we have more of a southerly or off to the left displacement. But right here would be the spot that I would expect that they would come along with a cross flight and then split this tail in two. This spot might be another one where they'd come out and mark it. But more often than not, I would bet right here. Right there. That's your spot. Not seeing much along the horizon. There's our sun. As we really looking through a hazy mess today. It's kind of. There was an X-class flare recently. Now that sun's going to get quite anxious in the months ahead as we peak this solar cycle. NASA hasn't been kept warning of solar storms for no reason. Now, what did I say? There's our crossplane right there. I almost missed him. Come back a little bit below where I thought. Maybe it was right there. Right there. So where that kink is, he crossed. So this is not that difficult to figure out, guys. This is not that difficult. There we go. Alright guys, I just got a message from a dude on Facebook who watched the shuttle Endeavour land at LAX. And he just watched how the whole day became a chemtrail mess. Started out with just a few trails in the sky, and as the day evolved, it just became, crazy. We've got the Southland, in this area right in here. And you can see the sheet of clouds as it exists across all of California. And what's crazy is this is a relatively minor event right in through here. It's a minor front. And so you're wondering, why the bloody hell is it such a big deal? Why do they need to have so many trails in the sky? And that's a tough one. But what we see meteorologically is that we've got a high little nosed right in through here. And it's just these little ripples. Remember, time and time again, they really like to work with relatively quiet environments. And so we see this low, which is going to slowly break down this ridge sitting over the Canadian Rockies. And the folks in the Great Lakes have been very cool as this deep low keeps getting recharged. More energy comes off the Pacific over this ridge and keeps reinforcing this trough. And that's likely to be the case for the better part of the next week. So cool and unseasonable back east. Quite the flip from the incredibly warm summer as to what has just magically appeared. And this is very much a winter pattern. This incredible omega pattern. It's like the Greek letter omega, highly longitudinal flow. And that is, let's just say that's extreme. It's very extreme. And so this ridge this trough off the west coast begins to come in. And so what they've been doing over California is kind of working on the southern extent of it. We've had all of the fires over Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. And that's finally going to get some relief as this storm consolidates and then begins to slowly work through the northern Rockies. Slowly, and that's the nice thing, is that it's got to be a slow mover. And more energy just still kind of pinwheeling around this deep Hudson Bay low, and then the North Pacific is very active. The heights across Alaska are dropping. So as we get towards the latter half of September and certainly past the equinox, we've got winter weather coming in on those northern latitudes. Here's a detailed image of Southern California, and you can see the incredible structure in the cirrus clouds. You can even still see some of the chemtrails out there late this evening. And these cirrus clouds used to be mare's tail, long, wispy, thin, with a little hook or a little curve in the end of the tail, and they're just not that way anymore. There's these bullseye holes, these holes from which energy manifests. You can see this one's all curled up and curled up. There's all of this curling, this twisting, and it's just not right. And then you can see just a multitude of cirrus clouds that have got this geoengineering footprint all over them. One little cirrus right there with the center mark, and then the clouds run across it, just like an electrical current. So it's a bit unusual. As we get in closer and closer, we can still see all the holes in the leading edge of the cirrus clouds. And so we really have lost our planet's weather. It's just not around anymore. And all the trails are rolling through Nevada. They continue to extend on out. I'm over here in Colorado, and we're nearly at sunset. A few clouds off to the north, but the San Luis Valley is hazy. I'm about right here with these mountains behind me, and then looking over this valley that you just saw, that trail come from east to the west and across, and he's just heading into the muck. So even though there's all of these trails westbound, they're out at the very edges of this, teasing. Now I want to go to the water vapor imagery. So you can see that we're here, at least in Colorado, we're in this thin haze. There's not a lot of water, but it's showing up at the high altitudes. But when we see the chemtrails being laid out, what should normally be dark or a uniform light gray begins to get stripes in it. Begins to get these stripes, like right here. You see them showing up. Boo, 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 boo. And so that's the chemtrails. So that allows them to follow how the air is moving and then gauge the efficacy of their engineering work. And it doesn't matter whether you're in California, whether you're in Jersey, whether you're in the UK, it's happening. I want to pop over to, and I do want to do a touch of enhancement on this, out into the Atlantic. And there's this whole convoluted mess, all of these little lows showing up. And I want to slow it down, because in here are trails. So don't get all like, what are they doing to me? What are they doing to me when it's overhead? Doesn't matter. It's happening everywhere. And so just know that you're not alone in this. And what you're seeing in your skies is hardly unique, because it has been pushed into South America. It's been in Europe as long as it's been in the States, which from what I have seen goes back to at least the mid-1970s. And I'm seeing some imagery now that is even leading me to believe that it might be even older than that. We might have some stuff that takes it back into the late 1950s. So something happened in Eisenhower's time. Something happened back there. And this is going to require a little more investigation on my part. But I'm beginning to see some pictures showing up where these chemtrails, as I've been showing today, are interested in the deformations or how the atmosphere has twisted a previously laid down trail. And I'm seeing that in pictures from the late 50s. So I'm beginning to think that this thing is old. This has been around a long time. So all of the weather textbooks, all of the cloud textbooks that go back to at least the late 50s are contaminated. They're contaminated with this geoengineering work. All right, not a whole lot going back east. We just have these two lows. And I think as we looked at the visible imagery somewhat earlier today, we were seeing these resonant holes showing up. That these storms are now kind of all rotating around. It's all about the geometry But the west has been, or the east has been relatively quiet and gratefully sane. You can see the rippling. And as the jet stream departs across New England, it's incredibly accelerated. So it's subjected in a great way to a lot of these energies that are everywhere. So I need to get this rendered because it took the computer almost 8 hours to render the last one last night, but that was 43 minutes. So I got to get on this earlier tonight. Look at these holes. Look at that, we got it right there, and then it shouldn't be this symmetry in these holes. It just shouldn't be there. They're too perfect. They're too perfect. They're too perfect. All right, everybody. End of the day on lovely Friday, September 21, 2012. And send me your pictures. Send me your pictures. Share with them on Facebook. Or do them on my wall at Weather Wars. That's a great place to have all this going together. Really kind of thinking we need to start it like a tweet at the Twitter account, so we can just share what we see in the sky and have this real-time weather observing network. I think that could go really, really far in getting this noticed. There's something about the power of Twitter. Look at all these ripples up here on Ontario. There's no mountains to introduce that kind of wave action. And then why do we have, these edges? Why do we have these lines? And there's something happening here. Something happening there. All right, everybody. Keep looking up. There's our sunset over the San Luis Valley. Looking to the west. Got a plane there. And a few other planes out there. Not many. Then you can see the texture. You can see the texture in this cirrus deck. All the ripples that are going on. Look at this right in through here. And then the trail we looked at earlier. Here's your break point, right there at the tip. That's that spot. You can see how out of the south, it's a whole different trail, although it is getting rather bleak in the angle to the horizon. You can see how up here, it's contorted very differently. So, that little trail we watched marked that break point. And then, got one more trail coming up through here. It's going to be a marking one, but he'll be here after the sun goes down. There we go. Iris it up, guys. And then he seems to be on the southern edge of all this business. Almost have a little bit of a sundog showing up right there. Alright, I'm set for the computer, focus-wise. My bad. Alright, everybody. It's gotta be it. Keep looking up.